The Dragon Prince has just wrapped up Season 6, its penultimate season. And the question is, did they manage to stick the landing? At a time where so many other YouTubers are out there saying, has the Dragon Prince happened to fall off? Is it no longer as popular as it once was? Has it lost its relevancy? Well, I'm here at least to say that the writing was pretty dang good. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. Now then, at the onset of this particular video, I will say this, I am not going to do a complete blow-by-blow of everything that happened within this season. Why? Because you should watch it for yourself. But instead, what I want to do is I really want to focus on some of the big moments that I think that the show either did very well on or did not do very well on. So that way we can have a look at just how the writing quality is. Now, one of the things that I think really can help you understand what's happening in this season is that everything is like poetry. Very specifically, that all of the different arcs, all of the different moments between these characters are meant to mirror what is going on with other characters. For the most part, the only instance where things really seem to get kind of janky with this really beautiful symmetry of light and dark is the wedding between Amaya and Janai. It kind of sticks out a little bit like a sore thumb because there's nothing really to quite compare against it other than Kareem's incursion into the kingdom as he tries to set himself up as the next despot. But really, other than that moment, it kind of sticks out. It's a little bit strange. I mean, it's great for them, but in terms of the flow of the season, it's a little bit weird. But everything else just flows so wonderfully together. The relationship between Claudia and Terry as compared to the relationship between Callum and Rayla and how they develop. How actually at one point it seems as though Callum and Rayla are going to kind of drop off a cliff, as though their relationship isn't going to go anywhere from this point on. Whereas against all the odds, it seems like Claudia and Terry are about to completely just step it up and be a fantastic, wholesome power couple. It was really beautiful to see, and then everything gets flipped on its head as Claudia goes against Terry's recommendations, against their advice, and instead decides to go through with Aaravos' spell, whereas Callum is willing to give up everything in order to help out Rayla, and he discovers that she is his guiding star, and their love finally culminates, and it's fantastic. You also have the dichotomies of duty between now King Ezran, Soren, and Viren, and the quest towards redemption and the path towards damnation, how different parents react to what has happened to their children. All of it is just so dang good. Now, one area of the show that within the series itself is actually really good, it is how the writers handled what they themselves created outside of the show that unfortunately retroactively diminishes a really wonderful moment. It's something they should have left more vague than stated, and that is Viren's sacrifice. Viren has been one of the big bads throughout the entire series since Season 1. Back in Season 3, we get to see Viren as the ascendant villain, the one who will destroy the elves of Zadia and save humanity, or so he thinks, and by doing so becomes anything but a human. And of course, he rightfully dies, and everyone was cheering and grateful for it, and then Claudia brings him back. What is he going to do with his new lease on life? And we see Viren go through this personal journey of deconstructing his own villainy and realizing, holy cow, I have done everything wrong, and I need to go back and I need to try to do something about it. And he realizes there is no clear-cut good redemption for him, and yet he still goes through with it. And that entire journey was just absolutely wonderful. It was heartbreaking. It was revelatory. It was so good. There's so many just... Viren, I believe, really stole the show this season in showing just the depths of his wickedness, but then the depths of his of his humility. And not just simply like humility as like, oh, look at him, he's so much better now, he redeemed. No, not really, but humility as in that he was brought down to the absolute lowest point, and we get to see him acting so human. Where he was once a monster, he now becomes an actual man and tries to be the father that his children need him to be in that moment. Not the father that he always should have been. He can't get that back. But instead becoming the man, the father, the human that his family and that the kingdom needs him to be. And the way that he dies, sacrificing himself to protect everyone from Sol Regum, is just wonderful. Now then, when the writers afterwards said, oh yeah, no, he wasn't redeemed in any kind of way. No, what he's doing right here is incredibly selfish. The moment that they stated that in an official interview completely tore away a lot of the ambiguity, the nuance, the various interpretations to his actions that the fans should be allowed to have. You, as the creator, you always know what is happening in the minds and hearts of your characters. And if you believe that what Viren is doing is selfish, as you, the writer, are creating this, then that's okay. But it takes away the power of this moment to then specifically state, oh yeah, no, this guy's just being selfish. There's really nothing noble in what he's doing other than that lives were saved. But that's more Soren than Viren. And again, that takes away so much fantastic fan discussion and debate, because obviously it was thanks to Soren's actions that any of that happened, that people were saved. But what about Viren himself? That opportunity has been ripped away from the fans to really delve into, because the writers decided that they were going to put their stamp of, well, this is where we stand morally. And this is something that is very difficult for authors to do. When you want to deliver a very powerful message, sometimes that means that you, as the writer, actually have to step back and take yourself out of the argument and instead let your characters do the talking for you. And sometimes that means that they are going to say and do things that you, as the author, don't always necessarily agree with, but that's what's necessary in order for the audience to get the full view of what's going on there. And then you have to trust your audience to be mature enough to grapple with some of these big questions that you sometimes want to present to them. Now, coming back around to something that I thought was absolutely amazing, and I love that the writers did not fall for George R. R. Martin's own pitfalls, and that is, you only get one red wedding. What I mean by this is that you only get one moment to really pull the rug out from everyone and completely shake up the status quo, usually through something dramatic, through something awful that takes out a lot of characters. You only get to do that once. And the moment that you do that, the audience will always be expecting you to kind of pull off something similar. And unfortunately for George R. R. Martin, he fell into his own traps over time because, well, he's kind of a one-trick pony. That all aside, Season 3 was the Red Wedding moment for the Dragon Prince, with the humans invading the other side of Zadia, with Viren becoming the king, wiping out the empire of the Sunfire Elves, bringing all of this chaos and destruction that continues to plague Zadia to this day, as well as just forcing the integration of the world, and just, so many great things, and the huge, amazing battle of Season 3. It seemed as though Season 6 might go in that direction, but instead it didn't. It set up a big battle, but then did something entirely different, did a truly great betrayal, thanks to Aaravos misguiding Sol Regum and taking him straight to Catullus, which actually fits out really well for Sol Regum, because Sol Regum hates the humans and there's dark magic there. And so, thanks to Aaravos and the great archdragon betraying Karim, Karim was left completely isolated and alone against a much larger army, and we get to see his hubris be his own downfall. He was so filled with the dreams of the kind of king he could become that he never bothered to actually fully have the conversation of, Sol Regum, are you and I actually on the same page here? Because Sol Regum said, there is a problem and you can't fix it, but give me my wings and I will destroy. And he's like, oh sweet, I like that. You're going to destroy my sister? Without ever considering that the dragon might actually be thinking of something different. And while I've seen some people say that Kareem's whole storyline was ultimately pointless in the grander scheme of things, not necessarily. He was being manipulated very subtly by Aaravos in order to empower the dragon that Aaravos hated the most, the dragon who ratted out his daughter to the council of star-touched elves and revealed what she had done by introducing magic to humans. And so as far as Aaravos is concerned, one of the best ways of enacting his grander plans of coming back is he needs to kill Viren in order for Claudia to do the resurrection spell, and the best way of doing that and causing all of the chaos that he needs to put all of the heroes onto the back foot and get rid of an old enemy is to completely misguide the archdragon through the blind ambitions of a stupid prince. It is incredibly subtle, and this is even proven in a wonderful way through how Cosmo realizes through his premonitions how revealing even just a simple yet very powerful and important truth at the wrong time can actually destroy a person. When he sees that what Callum needs to do, what will make him a better person, a better mage, a better hero, could actually even cripple him and turn him into a liability for the good guys. So Aaravos has that same kind of power since he's a star-touched elf. We see that the powers of good and evil have been placing their pieces here on the board everywhere, and really the good guys are on the back foot because thanks to Aaravos' machinations, the good guys have been blind to the grander game for centuries. So that way, even while imprisoned, Aaravos has been ready to enact his greater plan of revenge. And just quickly coming back to what happened with Kareem, I can understand why some people would be very disappointed with what happened because it's so reminiscent of the moment in Dances with Dragons where the Sand Sisters are all betrayed by their father, spoiler alert, and you then come to realize that so much of what's happened in the book doesn't matter whatsoever. The reason why the Dragon Prince, as opposed to Dance with Dragons, manages to pull off this complete reversal for these characters is because of the consequences. By Aaravos guiding Solregum said to Catullus, everything is set up then for the final act. Kareem is gotten rid of, and the heroes on the other side of Zadia have no reason to suspect that something awful is happening. And because Kareem is just wiped on out, and they do not understand what happened with the dragon, and apparently Corvus didn't pass on the information that there's a dragon running loose, or Ezran didn't decide to pass that on either, no one is prepared for the absolute devastation, destruction that is brought on. So as opposed to what happens with the Sand Sisters, where obviously that entire plotline isn't going anywhere now, and you just spend so much time reading all of this in a book for something that won't even matter in the future whatsoever. And in fact, the book even tells you very clearly in the epilogue that everything that you just went through doesn't matter except to make Cersei look bad, but it doesn't matter because the book has already proven to you that Cersei is one of George R. R. Martin's absolute favorites, so he's not going to let anything bad happen to her until the moment where he does need her to die in the final book. And so everything you just went through didn't matter. You didn't need to read any of that. But with the Dragon Prince, it's something very different because there is a method to the madness of restoring Solregum, manipulating him to destroy Catullus in order to put in the right sequence of events for Claudia to bring Aaravos back and to set up now all the insanity that is about to ensue. His plan is now going into motion. The final season, the heroes are going to be absolutely on the back foot, divided as they are, down a dragon queen, down an archdragon, down multiple warriors, down a kingdom. Aaravos has everything necessary to enact his revenge. So all of that was absolutely wonderful, and I loved a lot of the little side adventures. I loved the little story that Rayla found hidden away in the captain's cabin. I love the little thing where she's like, wait a second, why am I imagining him speaking with a male's voice? What if it happens to be a woman? She flips over to the front of the journal, finds out, oh, this is indeed a woman's journal. And then it fantastically recontextualizes everything that she's reading, and then the story becomes even more personal to her. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed getting to see the culture of the elves there in the Star Scraper. And while it seems very strange and isolated, it was beautiful. It was incredibly magical, and I enjoy Cosmo. I thought that was really cool. Now then, a couple of areas where I do wonder just how strong the writing really was is in the justification for killing Aaravos' daughter. That really didn't make a whole lot of sense, because again, she's just a child. Why burden her with this amazing weight of consequence? We're just going to turn you permanently into a star because you granted magic to humanity, and now thus begins the spiral into chaos. Well, could we explain that a little bit better, or is there a way of preventing the chaos? It felt incredibly rushed. And since it was rushed, and yes, Aaravos is not going to give all of the truth and all the explanation to Claudia. That was never his intention. We as the audience are learning through him, and so there's obviously a lot of information that is missing. As a result of that missing information, I feel manipulated as a member of the audience, which part of that is intentional, and I'm actually okay with Aaravos trying to manipulate me, but I also feel like there's information that's missing, as though the creators really want me to identify with Aaravos, that this is just so bad, and look at these cartoonishly awful members of the Star-Touched Elf Council. And they are cartoonishly bad because it doesn't really make any sense what they're doing. And if they're so powerful and have such amazing foresight, why can't they then intervene and prevent chaos, absolute chaos, from happening? Something is missing, and it doesn't feel quite right. We're going to have to see how Season 7 unfolds in order to truly pass judgment on everything that happened with Aaravos' past, because it feels half-baked. It feels poorly justified for all of the actions that happened. Or as in the words of Old Man McGucket, it feels a bit contrived. And then I just have to say, in episode 1, where Claudia's limping off and then Terry's all like, I'll always be here for you. No, go. Look, guy, she's barely making any progress whatsoever. You don't need to stand there on the beach screaming at her. And this is nicely followed up with him actually catching up with her, helping to clean her up, restoring her to health, giving her a new leg and everything. That was actually really good. That's what we needed. That's actually how it should have opened up. We did not need the ridiculous screaming from the beach scene, because honestly, that was dumb. And it didn't really amplify the emotions of when Terry helps out Claudia at all. In fact, actually, that scene is so tender and so beautiful that it's laughably a dichotomy to what we got in episode 1. It feels like episode 1 wasted time on just a silly, bad, babe, wait scene. And I just don't like that. It just did not fit at all. So overall, I feel like the Dragon Prince delivered pretty well in its penultimate season. Everything is set up for what it needs to do in Season 7, with Aaravos being out, with big reveals finally being given to us. We got so much incredible world building and such great character development this season. It's actually amazing, once again, what the Dragon Prince can do when its pacing is on point. This is the one season of all the seasons where I did not mind the jumping around from story to story, because once again, it's all meant to be mirrored. It was all poetic. It was an exercise in contrast. And where the writers were very heavy-handed and said, no, this is what Viren was going through, and this is the way that you should interpret his sacrifice scene, the rest of the show has, as far as I've seen, has been absolutely left up to audience interpretation. As a result, we're able to enjoy this dance of yin and yang, of light and dark, of love and hate, of mercy and cruelty, all wrapped together in this fantastic story of couples finally coming together, of families being saved across time, of families being lost, of families being found, of love, of loss, as just it is incredible. I actually am kind of getting goosebumps thinking about some of the amazing moments in this show that really just brought so much full circle. And I like that Ezran had a moment where, despite him being kind of childish a lot throughout the season, that him standing up to Kareem was an incredibly mature moment. I really, really enjoyed that. If we could get more of Ezran having these moments with other dignitaries, holy cow, sign me up for another season of this. Yet amongst all of this great stuff, there are moments where you realize the writing was a little bit weak here. Why is this scene here? Why did you set this up? It feels a bit contrived. There are definitely some weaknesses, definitely some low points to the season, but overall really, really good stuff. If there's one thing in terms of the grander world building and the setting of the board for Aaravos to initiate his grand designs, there's one thing that I feel has been severely lacking since Season 3, and that is the threat of the Sunfire Elf Empire, where it fell, how it's been taken over by all of these possessed entities. And I feel like this should have been a much greater threat that continues to grow throughout the series. So that way there's a greater motivation behind the struggle between Kareem and Janai, that there is this ever-present danger that's beginning to sweep across Zadia, and that there is then clear evidence that there is a waiting army for Aaravos to just simply possess. Now that he's returned, he's ready to go. That can all be inferred if you've been paying close attention, but that massive threat has not been emphasized. As a result, it's going to feel like one of those things in Season 7 that if it is used, if that trigger is pulled, for a lot of people it's going to feel like it kind of came out of left field, like it's another contrivance, whereas really it actually has been well set up, it just has not been well executed. And that is a difficult thing for any writer, to properly set up what you want to do and then to properly execute it. It is a dance that requires both partners to come together, set up an execution in order for it to be pulled off the way that it needs to be. We're going to have to see how Season 7 pulls that off. While Season 6 has been an absolutely incredibly strong and beautiful addition to the Dragon Prince, we now have to see how Season 7 follows through. Now then, because Seasons 3 and 6 of The Dragon Prince exist, and have shown that these writers can do amazing things with their stories, I have high hopes for Season 7. We're just going to have to see what happens this December. So, with all that being said, if you are looking for more reviews, analyses, and the likes for more than just The Dragon Prince, then I highly recommend that you check out our other videos here on our channel. And if you're interested in reading a fun dragon story, something that is quite unique, even more different so than The Dragon Prince, then I highly recommend that you check out my book, Tumble Teller, about a barred dragon on her very first solo entertaining show, which turns out to be so much more. A story about a young storyteller and the difficulties that come with being that kind of a person, with being within that profession. This book is my homage to all of you novice authors out there, and I really hope that you will buy a copy and check it out. But with all that being said, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.